Good evening and welcome to the Township of Chatham Township Committee meeting for November 10th, 2016. Greg, has adequate notice been given?
Yes, adequate notice of this meeting of the Township Committee was given as required by the Open Public Meetings Act as follows. Notice was given to both the Chatham Courier and the Morris County Daily Record on January 8th, 2016. Notice was posted on the bulletin board in the main hallway of the municipal building on January 8th, 2016, and notice was filed with the Township Clerk on January 8th, 2016.
Thank you. Please rise for the flag salute.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Gallup?
Here.
Mr. Kelly?
Here.
Mrs. Schwartz?
Here.
Deputy Mayor Sullivan?
Here.
And Mayor Ritter.
Here. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, we've got a couple of proclamations. The first one is World Pancreatic Cancer Day. Is anyone here for this proclamation? Okay, I'll read it then. Whereas in 2016, an estimated 53,070 people in the United States will be diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, one of the deadliest cancers, and 41,780 will die from the disease. Whereas pancreatic cancer surpassed breast cancer this year to become the third leading cause of cancer death in the United States, and it is projected to become the second leading cause by 2020. Whereas pancreatic cancer is the only major cancer with a 5-year relative rate in the single digits at just 8%. Whereas when symptoms of pancreatic cancer present themselves, it is generally in later stages, and 71% of pancreatic cancer patients die within the first year of their diagnosis. Whereas approximately 1,260 deaths will occur in New Jersey in 2016, whereas pancreatic cancer is the 7th most common cause of cancer-related death in men and women across the world. And whereas there will be an estimated 418,451 new pancreatic cancer cases diagnosed worldwide in 2020. Whereas the good health and well-being of the residents of Chatham Township are enhanced as a direct result of increased awareness about pancreatic cancer and research into early detection, causes, and effective treatments, therefore be it now resolved and proclaimed that the Township of Chatham, the Township Committee of the Township of Chatham designates November 17, 2016 as World Pancreatic Cancer Day in the Township of Chatham. We have a second proclamation here. This is regarding the Chatham Turkey Trot, which everyone I think probably knows I'm involved with. We were going to have our junior committee here, but alas, with the day off, they decided to stay home and continue their vacation. Whereas the Chatham Turkey Trot is a registered 501c3 tax-exempt nonprofit organization that hosts a 1-mile family fun run and USA Track and Field certified 5K race in the scenic Highlands section of Chatham Township, New Jersey on Thanksgiving Day. Whereas since its inception in 2009, the Chatham Turkey Trot has raised more than $80,000 for the Chatham Township Volunteer Fire Department and the Diabetes Research Institute. In 2015, the event had more than 950 registered runners and raised more than $24,000, making it their most successful race ever. Whereas over the years, the Chatham Turkey Trot has become a family holiday tradition that offers expert and novice runners alike the opportunity to spend time with family and friends, raise funds for 2 great organizations, and break a sweat before the big meal. Whereas residents are invited to participate in the annual Chatham Turkey Trot on November 24th by visiting thechathamturkeytrot.org. Now, therefore, I, Kurt Ritter, the Mayor of the Township of Chatham, do hereby proclaim Thursday, November 24th, 2016, as the Chatham Turkey Trot Day in the Township of Chatham.
Here.
All right, so moving on from proclamations, we've got a couple of presentations. We've got our members from the Joint Library of the Chathams, Fred Poche and Karen Brodsky. If you guys want to come on. Oh. I don't know who else you're presenting.
And Andy Hollander.
Okay. I didn't realize you were presenting to Andy.
I have to do this. Sorry. Good evening. I am Fred Poche. I have been one of the 3 township representatives on the Board of Trustees of the library since 1997, finishing my 20th year. And this is my 12th year as the president of the board. We also have Peggy Nelson, another representative of the township. Karen Brodsky is our director, and Andy Hollander, who's going to give the presentation, is an appointed member from Chatham Borough. Just a few words before we start the presentation. The Library of the Chathams was formed under state legislation in 1975. The two towns entered into a joint agreement to share the operation and maintenance of the library. It serves the 20,000 plus or minus residents of the two towns. And in addition to access to our library, you have access to the resources of 38 of the libraries in the Morris Union system. So if the bottom line is if there's a book you need or a volume that you need, if we don't have it, we can find it for you or get it for you. It's a great resource to everyone in town, from our toddlers who come for many presentations in the library every day, on a weekly basis, to our senior citizens. So it's something that everyone benefits from town. It's not just the schools, the kids, or the senior center. It's all of us. So with that, Andy Hollinger will start the presentation.
Thank you, Fred, and it's such a pleasure and a privilege to be here with you and to speak about the library. So as Fred was saying, it serves people of every age, toddlers to seniors. Now, we love the schools. I have two boys. They're 13 years old in 8th grade in the middle school, and we're so pleased with the schools. Schools are for a certain age segment. The library doesn't have that. No one can age out of our library. Our library serves everybody. What are the facts of our library? What's the usage? What does it mean? How do our citizens use it? So last year, 70% of residents had a library card. There were 237,000 visits to the library. There were 195,000 visits to the library website. Library is not just books, it's beyond books. We have, obviously, the volumes in the library, but we have access to you and to everybody else online. 238,000 items checked out. There were 1,370 youth, adult, and community group programs that attracted 19,640 visitors. I know I'm reading this, but I think that it helps to set the stage with really what is the actual usage of the library. 737 kids signed up for summer reading club, and they read 15,200 books. I think that's wonderful. A couple years ago, the library board, and I should mention I've been on the library board for 6 years. I'm the secretary. We developed a strategic plan, which began to consider, well, what are we going to do about improving the library? It's a good library, but what can we do to improve it? We'll give you some more context later. I'm keenly aware that we have limited time here, and I'm also aware that you may have questions, so please feel free to chime in. I won't read all of these, but we did engage with many citizens, leaders of our communities over the past 2 years. We're calling this the RMR project, and we're dividing what it does into maybe 2 groupings. One is to renovate the infrastructure, physical plant, and the second grouping is to reorganize spaces and modernize services to meet community needs. We're estimating that it will be $4.5 million, and we'll speak more in detail, Fred will speak more in detail about how that's broken down. Briefly, grouping 1, which is the infrastructure grouping, is approximately $1.7 million. It'll be needed really regardless of whether we do the rest of the project. Almost 1.3 for electrical, HVAC, and security. We certainly want to enhance security given what we've been seeing in recent years in our nation. The remainder will be appropriated from the capital request, and Fred can talk more about this. What exactly do we mean by renovate, reorganize, renovate, and modernize? let's look at, I don't know if you can see where the light is, but this is our current teen space here on the left. And it's not walled in. Anybody can go in it, and it's great. But what we envision is a teen space on the first floor, right near the children's room in green. And it'll be cool. Kids will want to come. I'm going to want my kids to come. Hopefully my kids will come. And everybody will be welcome. And there are going to be 2 smaller annexes to the teen room. Will it be supervised? Yes. There will be a librarian who will be keeping an eye on it, and also the children's room, which is right here. The librarian there will be able to see what's going on. It's going to be glassed in, so the kids will have a space. We believe that a library should welcome teens, and this is our proposal. So the children's room. Right now, you can't see it very well, but the children's librarian, if you enter the children's room, right here, is looking away. She's not looking at who is coming in, she's looking away. We want to change that. We want to change it so she or he will be looking towards who's coming in a more welcoming way and also in a more secure way. The local history room. So we have the New Jersey room here, which is right near the front entrance, you may recognize. And it has archival materials from our town. And it's good, but you need a key. It's not exactly user-friendly in a way that we would want. Our town history is so precious, we want to make it available for adults, teens, everybody to showcase what a great place we are and to give to my mind at least, our young people a sense of history is not just something that happens to other people. History is part of you. This is happening to you. You have the power to shape what is going on. So our local history room will be on the first floor, and it will have 2 sections. The first section will be a public space for people to come in. We'll have perhaps display cases where people can put in presentations. There will be a more secure area in the other part of it so that archival materials can be kept. I know that I want to move things along. If you have any questions, please.
So the local history room, is this exclusive to the borough history, or is township history there as well? Or?
Oh, it's everybody. This is the joint library of the Chathams, and so it would be critical for us to have the Chathams represented. Yes.
As they are now.
As they are now. The STEM room. This will be on the lower level. STEM, of course, means science, technology, engineering, and math. And it's really a cliche at this point to say that we live in a digital technological age, rapid, unprecedented change. Our library needs to reflect that and to embrace it and to enable our kids, in particular, to embrace it as they go out into the world. We're looking at a table in the middle of the room which will have robotics implements on it, so kids will be able to, and other people will be able to play with it and learn. It'll also double the STEM area as a meeting room. So if you want to hold a small meeting with friends, your group, you're welcome to come to. The STEM room, we think that a quality library needs a STEM room.
And are those computers around the perimeter, or are those chairs, or what are those representing?
They are monitors, which will have chairs next to them.
Okay.
The floor plans, I think you all have a handout of what the projected first floor and lower level will look like. What I want to highlight here is, here's the current layout. That red, jagged, choppy line is the sight line. So it's not, if you look from this little nice magazine reading vestibule here at your left, if you try to look to the other side of the library, you're not going to see it. What you're going to run into, your sight line, is going to be the circulation desk here. And that's okay, but then it gets even choppier because there's another sight line, ends here, and then there's another one that goes into the children's room. Long story short, we want to make it cleaner, we want to make it more welcoming. Perhaps as important or more important is security. In today's day and age, we wanted librarians to be able to see from one end of the library to the other end of the library, to just check what's going on, make sure things are fine. So this is the proposed first floor plan after the improvements are made, a straight line. You can see from one end to the other. Costs for grouping 2, such as the teen room, the local history room, the STEM room, and also a larger community room, we estimate will be about $2.8 million. If there are no questions at this time, I can just turn it back over to Fred.
Where's the money coming from? Group 1, $1.7 million. We already have a commitment from the 2 municipalities of some $400,000 remaining for a portion of this, and $200,000 is from our internal library funds that we have now. So we will be asking for this work. It's infrastructure. It needs to be done to keep the library, the building viable. We'll be asking the 2 towns for an additional $1.2 million in funds to complete those repairs and capital improvements. And as I said, this is something that needs to be done whether we do the modernization or not. In the group 2 is $2.8 million for the work that Andy just described. We have $1 million in fundraising, gifts, and pledges that we have been putting together for a couple of years now, and we're asking the 2 municipalities for an additional $1.8 million. The monies that we've gotten over the last few years, couple of years, recent years, from the Women's Club, some donation from Edwin Cruz Estate. And this is a gentleman who used to come to the library every day, and one day he didn't come anymore. And a couple of months later, his brother came in with a check for the library. So, you know, it's good that we're nice to everybody there. You certainly are, and I tell you, God bless you. You all do a great job.
You sure you just didn't have an overdue book?
You're underappreciated. For the cost of a good book, this would be the cost per household on an annual basis for, Tom, how many years did you say the length of the financing? This is work that we have put off really. We've tried to, for the 20 years that I've been there, we did added more space in 2002. We knew that a lot of these things were coming due, and we put it off as long as we can. We just need to do it. It's infrastructure, it's part of our community, and it's an investment in our community. Andy?
All right, thank you. So in closing, why? What's the value to our community? The library really is a community center. It unifies the borough and the township. It unifies people of all ages. It's a place you go. It's not just books, it's way beyond books. When we had some natural disasters, the library was open. We were fortunate to know, and people went warming station and they could charge their phones. We believe that great libraries go hand in hand with great schools. I'm so delighted that the schools are wonderful in Chatham. We believe that that is only, there's a real synergy with having a terrific library as well. But connecting in person. These days, I know I look at my kids and I love them, but sometimes I wish their thumbs weren't as nimble as they are, and they're on their devices. Connecting in person is one of the themes of this proposal. The teen room means kids can come and connect in person. the STEM room means that people can come there's a meeting room, but you can also talk about technology in person. The community room is expanded about 5 to 10% on the lower level. It means we can have larger groups. There's also going to be better amenities in that room, meeting in person. The local history room, of course, is really embracing the great heritage that we have in our towns and the people who made it the way it is today. So, more small group meeting spaces, carrying on with that theme. Cherish community history. Again, unprecedented rate of change in the way that people consume their information. Our library should adapt to that and embrace it. And costs rise each year. So if we don't do it tonight, this year, costs will be higher next year. And with that, we're available for anything you wish to discuss.
Yeah, I guess I'll just start off. Again, I just want to commend you guys and everyone who serves on the library committee for your work, your volunteer work, and everything else. Fred, been leading it for several years, many years now, and Karen. I think, again, I said this last year, and I'll keep echoing it. I think you've just done a wonderful job at the helm of the library and really bringing some real good change there and improving operations and everything else. I think you've done a wonderful job. The question, I guess, is I know that the request is, $1 million per town. You've got, looks like, raised $1.2 million. Are there any other efforts by the library or the committee itself in terms of a campaign to raise additional funds or to get greater awareness in the community from residents who might want to donate, in some capacity or maybe bequeath, additional funds or some larger capital gift, so to speak?
Well, we are always in touch with residents of the community on a constant basis. The monies that we've accumulated since the last improvement signifies that. And we are looking at doing a mailing to go out to all residents. We've reached out. We had a couple of invitation presentations in the last 2 weeks, and we hope to generate more interest and more donations. But we can't. We can supplement, but we're not going to be able to make much more of a significant dent in that number. The other thing we're considering very strenuously is some grants. We have a grant writer waiting in the wings, and if we feel like we're going to be able to go forward, we will be pursuing every avenue that we can to secure grants for the various phases of the project. But unless the project is firmed up and ready to go, there's nothing that we can prepare grant requests for. So that's what we're prepared to do.
Thank you.
I just want to clarify something, Kurt, you said. What is the specific request? Is there a specific request for a total of $2.5 million, $1.25 million from each town?
No,
or is it $1 million?
The total
Kurt said
with
$1 million.
the physical plan improvements are $1.7 million.
Right.
You've already given us a nod for 400. There's another 400,000.
Right.
So it's 4.1 less $1.2 million that we have. So it's $2.9 million.
Total of 2.9.
Between the two towns, yeah.
So are you requesting $1,450,000 each from each town? Is that a specific request to the towns, to each towns, to fund this project?
No, the share, Mayor, would be the same as the share for the operating budget, and I think we're 54, is that correct? We're 54%, Karen? Yeah, so we'd be 54% of that 2.9 or 3 million.
Okay, so it's not $1 million.
It's not $1 million.
It's more than
That's
that.
the agreement
It's
based on.
It's about $1
on
million,
that.
rounding $1.5 million our share.
I just want to clarify. That's what.
Thank you.
May I make a comment? I'm visiting tonight. Just to build a little passion into the project. I'm a school teacher in town. I teach 4th and grade math and science. And I also run a STEM Summer Teacher Institute in the summer for the teachers. And I'm really, really excited about this project. I know we have just passed the budget for the STEM center at the middle school, so you're probably thinking redundancy here, but there are many children that gather at the library at different times. It's a perfect opportunity for other groups to kind of join in and offer other events there that are STEM related, robotics competitions, opportunities for the kids to get together and collaborate. I will say that I know myself running a nonprofit, when you can get multiple sources for money, the grant money will then be able to flow a little bit more readily when they see all these different groups coming together. So I just thought I'd throw that out there, that I think the parents in this community would be very excited about this if, you know, they really get a groundswell. So I'm hoping for that for them.
Thank you.
Those are unsolicited comments. But
And nothing in the plan requires additional personnel.
no. As a matter of fact, we're hoping that the right now the configuration of the workspace is just horrible. You know, that's been the core of the, you know, in 1945 a piece was added, in 1960 a piece was added. It's very difficult to use the space. So we're hoping for the efficiencies that we will create will actually improve service and reduce some of our costs. But there are no additional operating costs involved here. Just the, you know, whatever the electricity, and that's our biggest operating cost right now on an annual basis.
Just two more points, if I may. Sure. Karen, if you could address, because everyone kind of thinks we're going to the digital world, as do I, and you think there's less you know, need for books. They get downloaded. It's easy to have a Kindle. Why do we need all this space for the library? And some of the statistics are rather interesting. So I don't know if, Karen, if you want to address the physical book versus the digital world we live in.
I'm too short.
You can take the mic off.
Thank you. Ow. Thank you. Yes, it's a very good point that you bring up. And there is a lot of information out there about how much more digital information is available. It is more convenient for certain purposes, but the use of books has not diminished. And if you look at studies done nationally, at least in the United States, among the younger people, use of books is actually increasing, print books. I know personally, even though I love technology and I have an iPad and I have a Chromebook and 2 computers at home, I still read print books, and I always will. So our circulation continues strong.
Right. And our space in the library is used constantly, too, for study groups, for kids who come in with tutors, and we have more and more demand for quiet study spaces, and that's a big part of what we're doing, is providing some more space.
And if I may, there were 620 programs for kids last year, 620. There were 450 programs for adults. There were 300 programs, gatherings by community groups. So definitely the space is highly utilized. If I may, a brief anecdote. I believe, I mean, look, I have a degree in computer science, but physical books are critical. I think that just believing we're going to consume things digitally it needs to be balanced. For example, a couple years ago, I was at the library just browsing, and I don't know how often we go and do that. I don't do it as much as I would like to because I don't have as much time as I would. And I was going up and down the biography section, and there was this bright colored book that jumped out at me, and maybe because I'm a shallow person, I thought, oh, that's a bright colored book. I'll take a look. It had this little squiggle on it, and if you remember what Charlie Brown's that line on his shirt looks like, it was a biography of Charles Schulz, who was the creator of Peanuts. And I took the book out, and I looked at it, and I checked it out of the library, and it was fascinating. And that's an example of something that at least I would not have experienced if I were just with my mouse at home on the internet or going through Amazon. So actually browsing books, I think, enriches us, and then it enriches our community.
Thank you. So just the last point, because you're asking for a major capital commitment here. From the sense of the township, obviously it's an issue that's been raised all across the borough, but particularly in the library. And I know you've addressed it, but maybe we can talk about it a little bit because it does affect the long-term use of the library, and again, particularly from the township, is have the need to look at the parking availability in the library in the future, the future of the borough, what is going to take place there from a standpoint, or if anything is going to take place there from a standpoint of increasing potential parking.
That is, honestly, that's something that we leave up to our elected officials. I mean, we do not, we don't get in between the two municipalities in terms of how you pay for things or how you agree to things. We're stewards of the operation. The boroughs tried to put about 10 extra spots in behind the library about 2 years ago, and they met fierce resistance. It turned out that it's wetland, so they couldn't do anything there. Are they going to ultimately build a parking deck somewhere? You know, I don't feel comfortable raising the issue with them, to be honest with you. You know, it's the people in the borough are well aware of the issue, and I don't know how it's easily solved.
If I could, did you want to address that, Andy?
No, please.
Obviously, the 54 to 46% issue between the township and the borough contributions towards the operating budget of the library is something, I guess it goes back historically. Is there any particular reason why we're looking at addressing this much larger project that is supposed to be divided among all of the Chathams, walking hand in hand through the library doors, why it would be 54 to 46, and why not just 50-50 on behalf of the township and the borough contributing towards this project?
Well, historically,
Right, I understand historically, but
the agreement
this
is
is
based
also
on the populations of the two towns, and I think that our membership reflects the same percentages. You know, the number of there are more library cards and members from the township than there are from the borough. That's the way the agreement was written, and it seems to have worked well all these years.
Is the agreement written that going forward, all capital expenditures will be broken down that same way, or can we talk about that?
If I can interject and help you out here, Fred, this again is probably not something that is an issue for the Board of Trustees. It's really an issue between
All right.
the elected officials here and the elected officials in the borough. If you wish to try to renegotiate that agreement, that's where it would take place, not with these folks.
Okay, thank you.
That's a good question.
Got to stand up for the TWIP.
You know, a couple of years ago, Karen just pointed out, we changed years ago, the staff used to park right in the back of the library all the time. So we changed that. We make them park, we got permits for them. They park in other places in the borough. But I would like to add that I go to the library a lot, obviously. I always find a place to park. You know, there are times when, you know, when the kids' programs are hot and heavy in the morning, if you go around to the back of the library, it's tough to find a place to park. There's a lot of other places to park in the borough. You can park on Main Street, you can park behind the post office. What our concern is really is that what we're short on is spaces to make it convenient for our seniors. We only have 2 handicapped spaces behind the library, and that's an issue. You know, some of our seniors don't come as frequently as they would like to because of that issue. But parking-wise, I defy anybody. You can always find a place to park. You know, and for me at least, the exercise is good.
If I may, I wanted to recognize 2 trustees of the library who are unable to make it. Susan Allen, thank you so much for everything, Susan, and Barb Montague, thank you as well. Parking, just to close the point, we have a map on the library website that will show you where available parking is. So it's behind the library. There's in front of the library. It's by the church, next to the playground. There's also Center Street. There's also parking in, by the post office across Main Street. So there is parking. Sometimes it's a little more challenging to find, we recognize that. But there is a map on the website, and there also is a map in the vestibule as soon as you enter the library that can help you for when you come the next time.
And the borough's also increased the allotted times that you can park in various spaces to accommodate all of our uses.
Thank you. I'm sorry, can I, one more point, just for edification purposes for the public. 1.8 million for the physical plant. Beyond that, if we were to not to fund this, or if the borough was not to fund this, if we were not to come together and fund this, is there any, stage 1, stage 2, stage 3? Obviously, you've raised money already from, or you've received a very nice donation from the Women's Club of the Chathams for the teen room. What would be the process, or would there not be a process at all?
We have not come up with a staging process because a lot of the work just needs to be coordinated to move from space to space to space. If you were not to fund it, ultimately the physical plant will break down, and it's on
excluding that part. I mean, excluding.
All right. If you don't fund it, the $1.2 million that we have, we're committed to contributions to build a teen room. So we would make that renovation. We have, significant contributions for that, and then we would go from there. I don't know. I can't answer that. It would be when we did the space expansion in 2002, the library ultimately had to close down for about 8 weeks. We don't want that to happen again. And the way the plan is laid out is so that our residents would have constant access and availability to all the programs that they always enjoy. So, it's not something that we considered. It doesn't seem to be a wise move. And it would just, there doesn't seem to be a real way from an engineering and architectural perspective to really accomplish that in a way that makes any sense.
Very good. Thank you. Fred, I'm definitely one of those card holders and a user of the library back to the summer reading program for myself years ago. But there was one slide earlier that mentioned that I think it was $500,000 in phase 1 was to pay for elements that were not completed on the previous project.
Yeah, that's left over from about 2 years ago. We said we immediately needed a new roof and some other improvements. That's the balance of what we have not finished yet.
Is this already funded, Fred, or is the original funding all gone?
Funded.
That's already funded?
So that's not a new request.
Money's in the box someplace, but that's already been approved by the municipality.
So the new request is $3 million, basically.
The new request is $3 million, and it rolls $300,000 from the 2013 request into it because it's more cost-effective to finish those projects as part of the whole.
Got it. And that's all the physical plant. That was the HVAC and the electrical and dealing with the drainage and air quality and all that stuff.
Yes. Any other questions?
Thank you.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
If you did all these renovations you want to do without changing the sight line, would there be a difference in the price? From one side of the library to the other?
The price, the cost of changing the sight line is not substantial. It's the big costs are changing the space for the staff, adding the teen room, making renovations to the children's space, and moving in the current New Jersey room. That's where the executive director is going to be sitting now. So management will be up front and accessible and available. We're also going to be shrinking the reference section a little bit, shrinking it a bit and moving it, and it'll be shrunk by the space of the New Jersey room. So the line of sights are a bonus from what we're doing. We're not changing the line, not spending money to change the line of sight. That's part of the way the plan will lay out.
Fred, are these plans on the website as well?
Yes.
Great. Okay, thank you.
If I may, can you hear me for this point?
Sure.
This may be a little bit of a different perspective, and you all know me. I was a graduate of Chatham High School in 1945. Now, I'm a type of person that has not used the Chatham Library very much, but to me, it's always been a focal point of, as it's developed, a joint community effort. Back in the beginning, when I was in school, it was basically a Chatham source. And as the township has developed, our people have come down and participated in this operation. To me, it's a jewel of the two communities. The fact it's located in Chatham, some people in the township don't appreciate that fact that it's Chatham-oriented. They don't feel a part of it. When you have this, I don't want to get into this part too, but I think this is Forrest brought up an interesting point. If you go forward with some of your planning, I don't think you're cranked into this 54, 46%. I think you should be able to come and ask for 50-50 basis. You say you have 70% cards outstanding. The question is the use between the two communities. This is an internal issue. I'm supporting the operation. As and I are willing to, because of what we know, pledge a significant sum of money to help you with this thing. But we think that there's certain things that should be recognized. I've always resented the fact that Chatham has not stepped up to the game and provided the parking, particularly the handicap parking. To us, it's helpful to have that. But the other side of the coin is wetlands in the center of Chatham is a typical pool, in my book. We don't feel, not the Chatham Township, that we get the cooperation from Chatham that we should in many of these programs. Having said that, if you look at the amount of money you're looking for, it's the amount of money that any one of us in this operation would probably leave as a tip for a good dinner at one of the restaurants. So it's not a significant sum of money for the financing of the jewel. But I do think that we better give some strong thought to this 50-50 proposition. There's no reason you have to be locked into this business. I'm sure our lawyers can figure out a way to equalize this thing. But the other side of the coin is, I think parking, if we've raised that issue, and parking's always been a source of contention, as you know, between the two towns. This would go a long way to help things over. I'm in favor of the amount of money that you're asking for. I'd like it to be redistributed the way Mr. Schwartz suggested. And I really think there ought to be a four-court press on the Chatham Borough Council for parking. I think they live up to their part of the deal. And that goes to station parking too. So that's my position.
Thank you, Bailey.
I'm more than happy to ask for 50-50. That's not what we're here to do. We're more than happy to make a full court press with the borough to try to push them for parking. But I can only do that with the town on a different level.
I think Tom said it best. It's probably our role and not your role. Your role is here tonight to do what you did. So thank you.
Yes.
But, yeah. Sue?
Hi, Sue Hogan. I'm on the board of the Friends of the Library. And I just want to reiterate what's been said here tonight. We have a wonderful building, the only building in the Chathams that services all ages and provides an amazing array of activities for everything from the toddler doing their little exercises and jumping around, everything to the adults and everywhere in between. I know the Friends provide a lot of that, the funding for many of those events that we have in the library, but it really is. If you had been down there during Superstorm Sandy, when people were going down there just to get warm, no less, be able to plug their phone in. I mean, it was a mob scene down there. There weren't enough plugs. They were just all over the place. So it really provides a home for everyone in both of our communities. And my husband and I, is 93 and is not here tonight, We're down there probably 3 or 4 times a week because he loves that library. And we have always found a place to park right behind. And I don't take advantage of the handicapped if there's any other spots there. So I really encourage you at all to really think seriously and support this effort. It will be a tremendous boon to all the citizens, the additional meeting rooms, the ability to come together and continue this from infant to 100 years old. Good old Alice Lunt, and everyone in between. And it really, it's been put together in pieces over the many years. This allows us to take our existing building, we don't expect to have to expand it again, and just make what we've got inside the building the best that we can be. So I really ask for your support on this, so thank you.
Thank you.
I can just close with a note to say that I don't want to call us cheapskates, but we're pretty frugal. There's nothing in this that's frivolous. Everything is bare bones as it can be. Nothing fancy, and it's just we truly believe will meet the needs of the community for some time to come. And hopefully you can see your way clear.
Thank you, Fred, and thank you,
Thank you.
for your committee for coming out tonight as well. Next presentation is regarding the Shunpike Road Corridor Study. Some representatives from the county. I'll have Karen do some introductions.
Thank you, Your Honor. A number of months ago, when we heard from Morris County that they were going to be repaving the area around Hickory Tree and the Chatham Mall from Southern Boulevard over to Green Village, we thought in the interest of connectivity, in the interest of circulation, perhaps more business-friendly, more connectivity, we would ask the county if they would consider some input from us. We've had some successful meetings with our engineer, our roads people. Tom Chickarone was gracious enough to host us all. And so I thank you, Deborah and Chris, for coming here tonight to tell us about the work that you've put in, some of the studies that you've done, some of the engineering plans that you have for increasing connectivity, walkability, et cetera, in that section of Shunpike, for arguably our only center of commerce in Chatham Township, the area between Hickory Tree Mall and the Chatham Mall. So thanks very much. Chris Vitz.
You're welcome.
Thanks for being here.
You're welcome. Christopher Vitz, the Morris County engineer. I have Deborah Della Giacomo. She's handing out some of the plans that we've done, some of the alternatives. She's the county traffic engineer. And we also have Dina Leary here, our director of planning and public works. She's actually both our bosses. And she's the one with the purse. So for the county. So what Deborah just handed out is some plan sheets that show the two concepts that we have on the table right now. What we were asked to look at, obviously we were repaving this area of Shunpike. On the left side of this sheet you have Green Village Road. To the south, or the bottom of the sheet, is the Hickory Tree Mall. On the north side, just north of that intersection, is the Chatham Mall. And then on the right side of the sheet you have Southern Boulevard and the other extension of Green Village Road up to Madison. Our resurfacing project actually came up, or is supposed to come up, to the leftmost intersection of Green Village Road. We are actually the one that's under construction right now. We shortened it up because we're just not ready to go with the plans here on these two intersections. But whenever we come to a consensus on what plans we decide to move forward with, we will include that resurfacing in this project. We were asked to look at some mobility issues here in the area and just to study the area, look at crash history, look at the age of the signals, any kind of upgrades that we could do. And some of the things that we did find was that on the westernmost intersection to the Chatham Mall, as everyone is well aware, the driveway that's directly across from Green Village Road is an exit from the site only. When you have a traffic signal, it's best to have all the left turns and everything into sites like that occur at the signal. So right now, there's no left turn if you were going to come from Lewanika and come down Shunpike, there's no way to make a left turn in at that signalized intersection. And what happens is you travel through the intersection, there's an island in the road, you get to the end of the island, and then you make the left turn into the site driveway there. There has been at least one accident there that we picked up on in the crash data. And that's a severe accident because it's a left turn and the person coming the opposite direction is traveling at the speed limit on the roadway. We also looked at the intersection with Southern, and we found over a 3-year period from 2012 to 14, there were 17 accidents at that intersection. So that's quite high for any signalized intersection. And right now, that intersection has 2 lanes in each direction on all the approaches. So it's kind of a leftover from when Shunpike was 4 lanes wide all the way to the east. And that's the same that occurs between the 2 intersections. It's kind of a leftover from that era when that was 4 lanes wide. What we did find with the traffic volumes you have out there now, 4 lanes is not necessary. It's definitely not necessary. You can get away with 1 lane in each direction and then have either a left turn lanes into the sites or left turn lanes at the intersections, at both intersections, and then shoulders on the edges of the roadway. So both Concept A and Concept B have shown that change, to change from a 4-lane wide section to a 3-lane wide section with shoulders. The island that's in the middle of Shunpike as you approach that westernmost intersection would be removed. And the benefit of doing that allows us to put a sidewalk from about the Starbucks property across the front of the Chatham Mall up to that traffic signal, so that you can actually cross at the signalized intersection. Pedestrians can cross there and then walk either to Starbucks or any place within the Chatham Mall also. You don't have that benefit of a sidewalk all the way down that side of the street today. So we wanted to incorporate that in this, and that helps soak up some of that area that's currently paved. It would still be impervious, but it would be sidewalk instead of an actual roadway. Along with this, the improvements, even with that sidewalk change and the removal of the island, it doesn't preclude us from going back to a 4-lane section in the future if, say, 20 or 30 years down the road, things change, traffic volumes increase, or some of these uses along the corridor change. So the width would still be there. It would still be approximately, I think it's 50 feet wide, so that you would still have the ability to go back to 4 lanes if you need it. And that's the same that occurs on Shunpike as you travel east of the intersection. We never narrowed up the roadway. We just put shoulders on the edges.
And how wide are those shoulders?
These shoulders in here, I think they're about 6 feet wide. So it's more than enough space. And one of the things is, this is definitely a bicycle route. This is on some of the state maps for a bicycle route through the Great Swamp. So we wanted to include that in this. You know, not that we're going to mark bike lanes, but a shoulder on the roadway definitely helps with keeping bikers out of the travel lane for vehicles. And again, it decreases speeds. This should decrease speeds. This is typical of a road diet. It's not. It can be considered traffic calming, but it's an easier way to do it with just striping and lane changes. Some of the other things that we would look to do is totally upgrade the signal at Green Village and the Chatham Mall. The one concept, Concept A, continues with this as just an exit-only driveway and keeping that other entrance-only driveway on the east side of the property. Concept B changes that up a little bit and has that intersection as a full intersection where you would have in and out on that Chatham Mall driveway. Personally, that would be my preference, but depending on how the owner of the property feels, you know, we're not going to force anything down his throat. We would obviously talk to the owner and see if that's the way he would want to go. Like I had said, there'd be some signal improvements there. Since the signal was installed, I think it was in '95. That's the most recent upgrade that was done to it, 1995. Some of the standards that we have to follow have changed as far as the size of the signal heads. They have to be a larger. Right now, it's an 8-inch signal head. We have to go with 12-inch signal heads. The pedestrian movements through the intersection, we'd put walk, don't walks, the new ones with the countdowns on them and new push buttons that we're supposed to have.
So would all the signals be, is it all new equipment, so to speak, or?
I think we might be able to save some of the aluminum out there, and it depends. We haven't really dove into it that far. One of the other big improvements at the intersection and with both concepts, Right now, from Green Village Road onto Shunpike, you have that right turn kind of slip lane that's there. We would actually remove that, and that signal head sits in an island right now. We would remove that, and part of that is to reduce the speed from Green Village Road onto Shunpike, because right now that move, people come up there and they're in their own lane, they can fly right through, they don't have to stop. We would look to change that so that it would be under the signal. You'd still be able to make a right turn on red, but if the signal is red, you'd have to stop there.
But they would be merging into the only lane that exists
Correct.
in the future? Okay.
Correct. They wouldn't have a separate lane to fly in, to merge into. That also picks up some additional grass area, and that's what we kind of showed on the map, additional areas of what would be pervious area. On the north side, you can see it's a little bit of a shaded area, but that just north of the curb line, that's where new sidewalk would be installed. Behind that sidewalk, we put grass, plantings, whatever would be required.
Is it just grass, or could you put trees or any
You could
small
put trees.
bushes, or?
Yeah, you could definitely put trees as long as they're, back far enough off the road, offset off the roadway. One of the things that I think we discussed in-house, again, these were just concepts, but right now it shows the sidewalk right on the back of the curb. We'd rather have a little space in there, and that would give you a space to plant trees as long as the sidewalk's back far enough. And that helps with snow removal and during the winter. That pile of snow doesn't end up fully on the sidewalk. The sidewalk has a little bit of space behind it. So we also look to do some improvements at Southern. Right now, like I had said, it's 2 lanes on every approach. There's no separate left turn lanes. You kind of use it. It's a shared, what's called a shared lane for the left turns. Because of the high accident volume there, and a lot of it is the left turns, we looked at separating out and reconfiguring just the paint at that intersection so that you'd have separate left turn lanes. And they would be opposing, so that means that they line up directly across from each other. So you can see when the person's turning left, or you can see if the person across from you is the way it sets now, you're a little bit offset and you can't see the person in the shoulder lane coming through the intersection. I think that's part of the reason there's some crashes. So you would have opposing left turn lanes there at the intersection.
Have you done, in part of your traffic study, did you do anything to determine how more congested it might be by reducing it from 2 to 1?
Well, to be honest, yes, we did. We did. At both intersections, there's enhancements that'll be made with new signal equipment. As I said, at the Green Village Road intersection, you have really good levels of service right now, but there are some approaches that have delays. What we would do is with a new signal, we'd have the image detection cameras on all the approaches, and it allows the signal to cycle a lot quicker to the approach that needs more time. So it's really just it can react faster than you have right now. Currently today, this northbound left turn is at level service F. It's about an 85-second wait during the morning peak hour. And with some timing changes and with those lane changes, having a dedicated left turn lane on the various approaches, we're able to rob time from some of the other approaches to give this more time. And it goes down to about a 50 or 60-second delay on that approach. So it will get better. As far as reduction of lanes, there was no real change. There was no real change between existing and proposed as far as backups or delays. And that's why we're kind of promoting the
I mean, right now you have a delayed light, right?
Yeah, I think one of the approaches is a delayed green.
You maintain that, I guess? Or?
We would look to change that depending on
The only delay is westbound on Shunpike.
yeah.
It's a left turn for 50 seconds.
Exactly.
And over on that area that you're talking about now, is that all new equipment as well?
On the westernmost,
Yes.
at Southern, no, that's new. That was done in 2003, and that did meet the new standards for equipment. So other than, I think there's one image detection camera, there's one camera that needs to be added there. There are 3 out there already. So there would be one camera there, and we would just look to add that, and that's fairly simple.
So that area is just more roadway improvement?
Yeah, it's mainly
Technical.
restriping that. Over on this side, this is more of the curb changes and signal equipment changes. As far as costs with either alternative, it's about a $500,000 project. Because each of these intersections are 2 county roads, the way the proportional share, the municipality actually owns this signal. This one, I believe, is shared with Madison. I remember when we worked on that last time. The share is 70% county, 30% municipality. And to be, this would be about, the share for the municipality would be about $50,000 at that, for the whole
And that's
project.
just for the aluminum.
For the aluminum, signal heads, pedestrian heads.
Now, I don't think you can do it here, but, you know, those other, I've seen other towns, they've got like their brown signals, they're more rustic looking.
Yes, well, that cost would be on the municipality, and it's usually, what's that, Deb? The additional for powder coating?
It depends. It was running about 15,000, 20,000.
Okay, for an intersection, so.
15 to 20.
Yeah, that was a major intersection in Montville that we did. We don't allow the signal heads to be any other color but yellow. We had used black signal heads before, but they tend to disappear in the dark at night. So I've changed our standard to just be the yellow for the actual signal head equipment, but the poles and the standards, those can be any color. It's just a powder coating on the aluminum. So, I mean, you'd have the opportunity to do that at this western intersection, but this intersection, we wouldn't look to change anything, so. So that, you know, once we have a consensus, and that's why we're here, we're just, you know, if there's questions, comments, we're here to answer them. We have some more homework to do on this, so we would come back and either present, you know, at a meeting in town or at a public meeting. It's not a problem.
Great.
So, okay.
Do you need Madison to sign on as far as that?
Yeah,
intersection?
we'd include Madison in
Have
this
you
too.
discussed
but
it with them or shared this with them yet?
No,
or
we
not?
haven't
Not
yet. I think with the striping changes, it's not really a major change for that.
Yeah.
And the signal, the one camera, I think they're about $5,000 a piece. So I mean, that signal, that camera's not that much.
So I have some questions.
Sure.
I think you're right about the intersection as you approach the gas stations coming from Southern Boulevard heading towards Madison. There's 2 lanes there, and it merges into one, and there are no signage whether right lane only or straight. What happens, you get 2 lines. You get 2 cars lined up, and you think the car to your left is going left, the car to the left thinks they're going right. They both end up going straight.
Straight,
I would
yeah.
imagine the probably of the 17 accidents, it's probably a high cause of that. So that can be taken care of very easily with some striping. I do not agree with your assessment that this could be a single-lane road. If you look at Southern Boulevard, which is a single-lane road, and what happens, this is a cut-through area. Obviously, 24 doesn't have exit ramps, you know, from 287 all the way down till you get to the end of Chatham, for the most part. So you get a lot of cut-through traffic here, right? And the traffic either goes right down Southern Boulevard and then continues south over 78, and the rest of the traffic goes straight down Shunpike, hooking up into 24 somewhere forward. So I think this is, you take this to 1 lane, very congested. Maybe someone can refresh my memory, but I thought there was a time when the Ace Hardware parking lot, that far entrance, there used to be an in and out. And I think we changed it some years back. Does anyone remember that? To the present configuration. Now, you used to be able to go in and out. So we changed it, and now we're changing it back. So I think it works. I think the ramp that you're talking about coming right here on the same intersection, when you come out of ShopRite and make a right in Saturday afternoons and even in the early morning, which I travel that way, there is a fair amount of traffic there. It will get backed up. My concern is if you know, I get the single lane road for safety.
Sure.
Right? So that's simple. Sure, we can make it as safe as possible. But if you make it so inconvenient, the only commercial area we have in the township is right here. It is very easy for me, in the neighborhood that I live in, the neighborhood other people live in, if you make it so inconvenient to get in and out of the shopping area here, it's just as easy for me to make a right instead of a left and go to New Providence and do my shopping there, which I don't do now. But I could very well do it if it becomes such an inconvenience. I think the traffic flows here. I think some of the minor suggestions work. I don't think we need to go to the expense of this from both our perspective and from the county's perspective of doing what you're doing. I think if we had a wider road and could do all these other islands and wonderful left-hand turns, it would be great, but we don't. So those are my concerns. and I just put them out there. I think the traffic flows. It would be nice if everyone would drive a little slower,
Sure.
but that's a different issue.
Anyone else have questions, comments?
Well, right now, we have an island in that area that's all just overgrown with weeds and cement, and so I think removing that altogether, I think that's fine. And,
Sure.
you know, it will give you a little more latitude. Having spoken with the owners of the Chatham Mall, they are in favor of going back to an in and an out on the western side of their mall. I think they understand that if you overshoot that entrance, your ship is sunk unless you want to go back into the Hickory Tree configuration. You're not going back into the Chatham Mall. There's just no way around it. So going with a two-way driveway at that end, they were quite in favor of. Given a couple of accommodations, maybe a delayed green at that intersection so people could come in and out of the mall.
Sure.
So obviously timing the lights a little bit different than they are now, which you'd do anyway. Widening that westbound area from Shunpike getting into the mall. You're adding a sidewalk there, if that's the truth, and then, you know.
Yes, that driveway would definitely have to be
Because it has to
modified.
be a little bit more accommodating of vehicles
Correct.
coming in. And business interruption, obviously.
Sure.
If this is happening, it's going to happen on some scale or other.
Right.
That, you know, getting it done as expeditiously as possible.
Of course.
These stores don't want to lose commerce for a week or something incredible like that. So the sooner the better. I know we talked about the idea of the facing left turn onlys, which I think is really important at the eastern end of the intersection, so that the cars that are making that left-hand turn across traffic will
We'll actually see the person that's coming
know that they're making
through.
a left-hand
Yeah.
turn across traffic. You know, the idea of going back to the island that's on the western side of this stretch, it's unsightly right now. I mean, at one point, I think it was supposed to be beautiful, but it sure isn't now. If you go by there, it's...
Sure, it's deteriorated
Right.
from whenever it was installed. I'm
And
sure.
if it's outlived its purpose and we can have a little bit better circulation there, I think the better. So those are the impressions that I have from our local business owners
Okay.
there.
So Karen, which concept did he prefer?
With a two-way driveway on the western side of the Chatham Mall,
Which is A
which
or
is
B?
B. Which is B.
It's B.
So when you are traveling west on Shunpike and you've got the Chatham Mall on your right, you can enter the Chatham Mall at two spots.
Mm-hmm.
One by Mathnasium and one on the other side of the Chatham Mall.
So he didn't like having the advantage of two entrances way on the going east then, on Concept A?
I'm not sure what I'm not sure. if I get
Concept
that.
A is
Concept A,
just,
you can enter the mall twice. You can enter here, and you can enter here. Right, this is the Starbucks, this is like Ace Hardware.
But you can't get,
correct, that's
you
just,
can't get to the Chatham Mall. There's only one entrance into the Chatham Mall on Shunpike.
Today,
Yeah.
yeah. So my point is, this one offers you two opportunities to get in. Concept A, right?
Concept A still
Concept A
only
is
has
the-
one entrance.
the driveway
That's the
across.
exit for Starbucks. That middle break in the greenery, that's the entrance to Chatham Mall you're pointing at.
Yeah, right here.
Yes.
So there's one entrance, and then over here is Starbucks. Right? I know, but my point being though is if we get rid of, people out in the audience can't really see this, Concept B eliminates the entrance into Ace Hardware, that mall, and you only have to...
No, it wouldn't.
No, it doesn't. It
wouldn't.
leaves it
wouldn't.
there.
There's some striping that's shown in the middle of the roadway on Concept B, but that would be modified. Again, these are just concepts, but that driveway still exists in Concept B.
So the
No, I understand it
striping,
still
the
exists there, but you
striping
can't make
that's
your
in the
left
middle.
turn. You can only make one left turn in Concept B, right?
No, you'd be able to make the left turn there too, into
Okay,
that
so
driveway.
the striping would be
The
different.
striping
Then
is
it's
different.
shown on the
Yeah, it's
diagram.
not shown correctly on here to show that left turn in.
I think the main advantage, if you want to be subjective about Concept B, is to allow, when you come out of CVS or Dunkin' Donuts, that you can continue straight across to go to Ace Hardware. So it connects the two
Correct.
It connects the two malls in a way that they aren't connected today.
Correct.
Presently, you come out, you have to make a
You
right.
have to make a right and then make a
you have
left
to make a
in.
left against opposing traffic.
Correct.
So it facilitates that flow to connect the two malls better than they are today.
Exactly.
I like the shoulder and the bike lane option. I think that's a big improvement. I think you're right when you said earlier that that's a popular bike route.
Oh, it definitely is.
You're right there in traffic the way it is now.
They counted, we had the consulting engineer count bicycles on weekends too, and it was 12 or 17 an hour on bicycles. So that's higher than probably any other county road.
And what would be the setup for pedestrian crossings of Shunpike from one mall to the other?
Okay, so right now you have some not very nice crossings that are there today. What would happen is with a new signal, we'd have to put in ADA compliant handicap curb ramps at that Green Village Road intersection to the Chatham Mall. So we would have to open up that accessibility to everybody. So you would be able to cross Shunpike on either side of that intersection. Currently today, I think there's one crosswalk on that one side, but there's no sidewalk once you get to the Chatham Mall edge. Mm-hmm. So you're kind of in the road, or in the driveway walking into it. Yeah.
So as part of the repaving, then there'd be restriping for a clearly marked pedestrian crossing.
Correct.
And then the lights, when you say it's ADA compliant, does that stop traffic all four ways for people to walk across?
It wouldn't be in all four directions. It would be with the movement of traffic. So
Okay.
if you have the green north-south, you'd be allowed you'd have a walk on the north-south direction. Same with east-west. If the traffic's flowing east-west, you can cross on the walk signal for east or west. And it would be the walk signals you see today with their hand mans with the countdowns, the number of seconds that you have left to cross.
Okay.
That's what we put in every place now. That's actually the required standard.
Okay. And you mentioned a new sidewalk across the front of the Chatham Mall.
Correct.
But I thought you said just as far as Starbucks, but if I'm reading this plan, Concept A correctly, it looks like it goes all the way to the gas station at the
Yeah, I
front.
believe there's some sidewalk across.
There is some there already.
Starbucks
Already
today.
there. It would connect with.
So it would connect to that. So we just wanted to show that so that you could see there'd be connectivity across the whole.
Okay.
So in your
Between
traffic
both
studies,
intersections.
do you take into the effect that now that you've introduced a sidewalk on that side of the road and you've taken it down to one lane, Starbucks gets very heavy traffic. Obviously the other the mall with the Ace Hardware gets very heavy traffic. Now you've entered an element of pedestrians where there aren't presently, and what does that do to the traffic flow?
We did count pedestrians too, and I believe it was during the weekends there was maybe 5 to 7 an hour. During the peak hours, it's usually around noontime. 7 pedestrians an hour, and that was at both intersections throughout. If you had maybe double that, I would think that it would increase maybe that much. I do think while you do allow people to walk across, if they're parked at Hickory Tree and they want to go get Starbucks, they're going to drive across. They're going to go through the drive-through. I just think that's the nature of it. You may get people from the field. I believe there's the sporting field here that do walk up and cross. I really don't see that as that large an impact to that driveway. Again, those people are queued up on the site. They're not coming out.
I'm talking about the people who are coming straight down Shunpike and now want to turn in, and now they
Turn in.
can't because it's a pedestrian walking down that sidewalk, and now all of a sudden,
Well, you will have a
you're
shoulder.
slowing traffic back.
You will have that 6-foot shoulder. So if the person does move over to the shoulder area, you will be able to pass them. There'll be enough space to pass. They would encroach on that opposing left turn lane a little bit. But again, for a pedestrian to cross any of these intersections is maybe 5 or 8 seconds. It shouldn't be too long.
Well, it's an interesting discussion between walkability and not wanting walkability.
Right. And
You're
I mean-
looking at a place that is, it's obviously a thoroughfare, but it's also our only center of commerce. So
Of
you want
course.
cars to be able to move about freely, obviously, and people commute that way.
Yep.
But you also want to focus on the fact that foot traffic is good for commerce. So
Exactly.
it's a double-edged sword, and it's a balancing act. You've done the counting. You've
Yes.
done a lot of the calculations and traffic patterns already. So it really is a double-edged sword, isn't it?
And we could provide that to you. I mean, I believe it was sent, but we could definitely send it and share it with the town.
Right. And the numbers
if there's any
are
questions.
really important, but I think anecdotally, since we live here.
Correct.
We're there all the time. We drive
Definitely.
down this corridor 4 times a day.
Right.
Or what have you. You know, you do philosophically think about introducing pedestrians to a commercial area. And Tom, you know, you can speak to the speed of traffic in this area as well, more than any of us probably.
I can also speak briefly. You know, it was interesting to have some of the former elected officials here going back to when I first came here 16 years ago, Fred Poche, Sue Hogue, of course, Bailey Brower. This concept has been kicked around for at least that long. You know, there was a plan, a concept, an idea of trying to make this part of town function more like a downtown business district.
Right.
To make it more walkable, to do streetscape, you know, something to make it more pedestrian friendly and to slow the cars down in this block. Cars, and we talked about it when we, first started discussing this. Cars that are eastbound coming from, Lewanika, that if they catch a green light coming through that intersection, by the time they get to my house, they're doing 60 miles an hour.
But I've done 60 from start, being the first car at the light here.
Yeah, well, I know you're always in a hurry to get past my house. But seriously, this one block there, I think it's to our benefit to slow people down in that section. So that's my own personal opinion. I think that concept works best to do that.
Any other questions, comments?
Just a thought. John came up with an interesting proposal for the top of the Southern Boulevard Hill, that project with the kind of like the brick retaining wall and the Chatham sign at the top of Snake Hill as part of that project that's in the works. Is there any benefit of having something like that as you come in from Lewantika into town? That would this project lend itself to something like that?
We do have a sign,
Just a
the
sign.
Chatham Township sign that's out by the Kirby property.
Yeah.
That is where you actually enter town.
Right. But we don't really enter town at the corner of Fairmount and Southern Boulevard either. It's just a high visibility.
Right.
It is a gateway to the town. Just happens to be a block or two farther into town from the corner.
One of the problems when we were actually looking at doing the signs that we did, we only did 4 of them, but there are more entrances to town than that. It becomes a little bit difficult to
No, but as
do
far as,
entry.
having a
But as
pretty
far as-
thing with brick and,
That's something I
like-
think you ought to ask the merchants to pay for.
But away from-
frankly. Welcome to
that's
the
just another
Chatham
grant
Township
application, John
Mall
Rushke.
there.
Well, I mean, you would have, if the consensus is to remove that right turn lane, you'd have some area in there. Quite a bit of space to put some kind of enhancement there, so.
I would just, to Mike's point about that intersection, I would say the intersection at Southern Boulevard and Fairmount is much more difficult to navigate, and traffic gets backed up because there is no left-hand turning lane and a straight lane, and there is no coming from the borough out on Fairmount Road. There is no left-hand turning lane to go down Snake Hill, and that's where the traffic gets jammed up. It's particularly difficult coming up Southern Boulevard to make that left onto Fairmont. That, in my estimate, is a much more worthy proposition than potentially what we're talking about, the money we're going to spend here.
I would agree with you. I think that is our most difficult intersection in town, and it should also be addressed.
Right.
I know that the county has looked at it. Part of the problem there is the change in elevation. That's what creates some site issues.
There's some right-of-way
on the-
issues there.
yeah,
It's a
so-
5-way intersection instead
But
of a
clearly,
standard 4.
you guys need to continue to look at that and see if there's a
course.
way to make improvements.
Right,
'Cause
well-
it's difficult for cars and for pedestrians.
The deal with this is that this is happening, so, I mean,
Yeah,
the
we're gonna
paving's gonna
repave
get
it.
done,
Yeah, we're gonna
whether
repave
we
it,
have
so, I
our
mean,
input or
it's-
not. So
it's the
having you
opportunity
here
is here.
is our opportunity to get it right at this
Correct.
place, which is gonna happen with or without us.
Correct.
So, that's what we're all about right now.
And when is that paving taking place?
Actually, the paving east of the intersection is going to occur before the end of this year. This paving would be included in this project, or resurfacing this area, so we kind of held that money back until we get this squared away.
Okay.
So.
We haven't talked about one of the tricky parts of that intersection, coming up Southern Boulevard, turning left across Green Village Road, across then if you want to make a turn into the gas station, you've got to cut across another lane with the traffic. That's sort of a horror story. And then we're talking about, some of you on the platform know this, but we're talking about a fast convenience store use perhaps in that corner. I contend that that's one of the most dangerous crossroads to try to get across walking that there is in the town, particularly because of the traffic coming up Southern Boulevard, making the left-hand turn, and then getting over to get into Starbucks 4 in case this is the gas station. I think they ought to try to address that somehow.
That would be addressed a little bit with the narrowing of the lanes. Again, it's 2 lanes westbound out of the intersection. This would be 1 lane out of that intersection with the shoulder. So you wouldn't have that crossing of the other lane to turn into Starbucks or the gas station. What also would happen is because those edges are shoulders now instead of a travel lane, you have a little more opportunity to be out of the traffic lane as you cross as a pedestrian. You're only crossing 3 lanes of traffic instead of 4. And it would again be timed with the light. If we were to have a left turn arrow, if that's, and I don't think that's what we were looking at, but if we could time that so that it's separated out.
The only safe way to get into the gas station that's on the corner is going out towards the town of Morris Township, New Vernon, be in the right lane so you can cut into the station.
Okay.
Otherwise, you've got to cross traffic from coming in from every direction.
Right.
So one of the things we're considering doing in the next possibly year or two is putting affordable housing on Summit Boulevard in the area of the skate park. So that will increase traffic at the intersection probably significantly.
Sure.
Are you confident that the technology can deal with some increased traffic that, increased volume that you may not be thinking about?
Oh, definitely. I mean, that's one of the reasons we want to add the 4th camera at the intersection. Specifically, if you're talking about traffic, the 4th camera there would allow us to steal time from the approaches that don't have any vehicles approaching them, and give it to the approaches that do. And again, with the pedestrian improvements that have been made at that intersection already, with that 2003 project, we can take another look at that too, to see if the timing would definitely change for the pedestrian crossings because the signal timing above changes with the striping changes. So, sorry, I'm getting into semantics, but we would have to take another look at the crossing times.
Well, Bob, you speak to traffic. I speak to the foot traffic.
Pedestrians.
That's going to be going up the sidewalk to that corner. It's exaggerated by that crossroad. So, I mean, if you have people walking to the shopping malls from this large development we're talking about, this corner of Shunpike Road and Southern Boulevard and Green Village Road become very important.
I agree.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
This whole area of town has been developed. We put in, this redevelopment of Shumpike Field, which has, increased after the games, people go to the shopping center.
Of course.
It is our, little hub in town, so it is important to get it right.
Yeah. And that's one of the reasons we wanted to add that sidewalk across that Chatham Mall and have the ability to walk in there from this intersection too, where you don't have it now. It's definitely not safe on that side of the roadway. So those are all things that we want to try and we want to work with you to enhance. So.
Great. Anyone else? All right. Thank you. We'll move on to reports.
Okay. Thank
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Really,
Thank you.
I appreciate all your work, and I appreciate your communication with us. It means a lot to us, really. Thank
Sure.
you very much.
Thank you.
And nice to see you. Thanks.
Mike?
Reports are very good. The DPW is continuing to change gears from one season to the next. One day they'll be clearing leaves from public property and winterizing a playing field by flushing the water out of the irrigation lines and shutting down fountains and things like that. And the next day they're down front-end loading extra salt into the second salt dome. They filled the first salt dome. The second one is now full. They're ready for the season. They're also, the next step is to mount the salt spreaders in the back of several of the trucks so to be ready. So that's their transition season, right in full swing. The community garden is also is quieting down for the season. Notice has gone out to all the existing plot holders, reminding them that for next year's plots, please send in your application and your fee right away. And then by the end of the year, the garden will be spreading the word that how many plots are available for new members for the new planting season next year. So they're right in the transition season as well.
So
And
how did that turn out? It's a 50-50 between the borough and the town? Is that?
there's a little bit more borough usage than township usage. It's about 57% borough, so it's not totally out of whack, but it is slightly more. There is no waiting list. Everybody who has shown an interest and has come forward has been accommodated. And at the end of every season, there's several plots open up, and so there'll be all the more reason for township residents to get their word in now and get on that list, because it would be good to be as close to 50-50 as possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Bob?
Joint bracket of the fall sports is winding down. As far as reporting from the various clubs, everything continues to go smoothly as we continue to transition to club sports, and not aware of any issues that I need to present to the committee on that.
Thank you. Karen?
Very good, thank you, Your Honor. The Chatham Township Environmental Commission had a successful water and wine event at the end of October. They had about 15 folks in attendance, and of course the safety of our drinking water, not necessarily here in Chatham Township, but obviously on a nationwide scale, has been an issue in the news. There's new concern over chromium-6 in the drinking water as well, and it was very nice to have our local people, our utility from New Jersey American Water, et cetera, to come and instill confidence in us in the safety of our drinking water, but also to bring the community together to discuss it and allow them to know that they have an open forum to bring these concerns to light and to our residents. Environmental Commission was also thrilled to have Boy Scouts in attendance last week, and that was great. We want all the volunteers and anybody who takes an interest in the environment to come out and see what goes on. The Environmental Commission also extends a very hearty thank you to Marilyn Murray for her service on the commission. She will be retiring from the commission effective ASAP to enjoy some retirement and do some other volunteer work. So that's the news from the Environmental Commission. The Senior Center had their successful shred event last weekend. That was great. They raised $3,300, which was about on par for last year's, from the springtime most successful shred event ever. So just keep on saving your stuff, and then we'll be back again in the spring for helping you shred. I had a great experience at Southern Boulevard School's Work Family Connection last month also, as they celebrated Lights On After School Week. Lights On After School is dedicated to awareness to those kids who do stay in school rather than go home because they have working parents, and it's better for them to dedicate a little more time to their studies and socializing with their classmates after school, bringing awareness to these programs. And I had the great pleasure to share Harold and the Purple Crayon, one of my very old-time favorite stories, with a very lively group of young people at Southern Boulevard School's after-school program. And on a personal note, I would like to extend some very sincere sympathy across the northern border into Chatham Borough to our sergeant on the borough force, Mike Mahoney, who lost his wife suddenly earlier this week after 15 years of marriage, and Cindy Mahoney sadly passed away suddenly at the age of 50. And on behalf of the township and all of us, certainly here in the government, and on behalf of our police force as well, very sincere and heartfelt sympathy to Sergeant Mike Mahoney and all of his family, and of course all those who love him so much on the borough force. And that's what I got, Your Honor.
Thank you, Karen. Kevin?
Sure. First, Tom, I want to thank you for being here, because I wasn't sure if you had packed up and left for Canada yet after Tuesday, so it's nice to see you here tonight.
And I appreciate that sentiment, and I'm also glad to report that 2 days into this national nightmare, the world has not yet come to an end.
So, anyway, It is also the 241st anniversary of the United States Marine Corps, so I just want to say happy birthday to all my fellow warriors out there. And of course, tomorrow is Veterans Day, and I always give my short history lesson. Veterans Day used to be known as Armistice Day. It was the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month that World War I came to an end, the war to end all wars, and of course we know how that worked out. But certainly we owe a great debt of gratitude to our veterans, and particularly the young and the old. I talked last year about how our World War II veterans, the number we're losing from the greatest generation at such a rapid rate, and the great stories they have. Just appreciate the service that they've done. You know, my own father was in Korea, and he just told the story. 50 years I didn't know the story. That he was with a squad, and one of his squad members won the Medal of Honor. I never knew it. And you know, those types of veterans, they just don't talk about those things. So it's an amazing debt of gratitude that we owe them. They do have great stories. So you know, you see one, reach out to them, talk to them, thank them. You know, we see many of the wounds of war, particularly our young veterans coming back from Iraq, Afghanistan. But there are many wounds that go unnoticed, the mental wounds. And, you know, I just shout out to Kurt for the work he's done with Out of the Darkness and the suicide. I don't like to quote statistics because I think they get abused quite often, whichever way you want. But we do know there's a high propensity of veterans who are committing suicide. And they deserve more. They deserve our attention. And hopefully our new president will do what he said from that fact. And so anyway, I just wanted to say thank you and nice to see you, Tom. That's it.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Kevin, and on behalf of the committee, everyone else, thank you for your service as well.
Thank you.
And happy birthday. Keeping with that, a couple of items to report from the Communications Committee. I think everyone's aware the new website launched about 2 weeks ago, I think it is. Feedback thus far from residents and other municipalities has been positive. We encourage any resident or anyone else for that matter who has thoughts and ideas on how we can further improve the site. It's a living site, obviously. It always can be improved. To email the Communications Committee at communications@chathamtownship-nj.gov. The newsletter for November, December will be coming out hopefully next week. And obviously Veterans Day is tomorrow, and the Green Village Fire Department will be hosting the Veterans Day event at 11 a.m. And I just want to make note of this one item. I don't suspect you to talk about it, John, because you're the one getting recognized for this. But John is going to be recognized by the New Jersey Society of Municipal Engineers. He won first place in their municipal construction management projects, and this relates to the sanitary sewer systems modifications project. So congratulations on that. I think we can all say on this committee today and prior committee members, you know, we value your insight, your expertise in all the things that we do in the township here. So thank you and congratulations on this recognition. With that, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mayor. A couple of reports on several projects. Colony Pool, the demolition work has started, and so the contractor will be proceeding. We'll be watching the weather carefully to make sure that none of the quality of the work is jeopardized as the weather changes. We did receive bids for the electrical improvements at the municipal building. Disappointed that we again only received one bid, and it wasn't the bidder from the first round. It was actually a second bidder that bid. Although the good news is that the price was reduced, and Tom has confirmed that funds are available. So we'll put it on the next agenda, a recommendation to award that, and we can just move forward with that project. That project, again, is funded by FEMA, so the majority, 95% of it, is funded through a grant. As the committee recalls, there was a bond ordinance that was passed for some additional improvements within the sanitary sewer system. Two larger items. The bond ordinance covered several improvements, but the two major improvements. One was improvements at the Chatham Heights pump station, which is off of River Road. It involved replacement of the generator pumps and electrical improvements. It's in dire need of replacement. That project is ready to bid, so we can go out to bid for that project. The second significant project is the replacement of the UV system at the treatment plant. Again, the service life of that equipment is well beyond it's what we anticipated. It needs to be replaced. That project, we're just waiting for approval from the New Jersey DEP to authorize that, and then we can go out for advertising with that project also. And then lastly, the Woodland Sidewalk. As I reported last meeting, I believe it would be best to advertise that in January when contractors are slow, and just be prepared to go forward with that project in the spring. We still do not have the DEP permit. To move forward with that, I don't anticipate any issues. I actually see the light at the end of the tunnel. It should be issued shortly, so I don't anticipate any issues, and we should be on schedule for that January advertisement.
John, can I ask you a question about the electrical work that we're doing here at the municipal building? And Tom, you know this too. The lighting, both down the Mountain View driveway and throughout the parking lot down below, this will be included in this work order, because the lighting has been dysfunctional for quite some time.
No, that's a separate project, but that's in the works.
Okay. Thanks.
That it, John?
That's all.
Great, thank you. Tom?
I think, Mayor, the only thing probably newsworthy to report is that we met earlier this evening with representatives from the Federal Environmental Protection Agency to get an update on the Rolling Knolls landfill. Turned out to not be much of an update. There's not a lot of news to report. It was really more of a reconnecting with them, because we haven't really heard anything in about 2 years. Anyway, the report that we got from them is that the project is moving forward. The RIFS phase, which is the investigation of the site and the development of doing a feasibility study for potential remedies, is ongoing. They expect that to be completed perhaps within the next year or so. And then following that, you wind up with what is called a ROD, or the Record of Decision, which lays out the likely remedies that would be implemented there. They will be sending us a link to their new or updated website that we can put on our new and updated website for people to be able to go on and look at what public information is available and as it becomes available. So that's really the gist of what we took away from today, is that it is moving forward, and at, who knows when, but they're estimating another 12 to 14 months to complete this phase of the investigation.
All right, thank you, Tom. We'll now move on to a hearing of citizens. This is an opportunity for any member of the public to be heard about issues that are not on the agenda or scheduled for public hearings tonight. To help facilitate an orderly meeting and to permit all to be heard, speakers are asked to limit their comments to 3 minutes. At this point, please step up to the microphone, state your name and address for the record, please.
I hope I'm doing this at the right time. Am I doing this at the right time, Karen? Okay, great. Thanks. My name is Todd Goodman. I was born and raised in the township. I still live here. I'm here to, sorry? 4 Woodlawn Drive. I grew up on Hilltop Terrace and Huron Drive, if that's of any relevance. I'm here on behalf of the Chatham Skate Park. I've sort of jumped in. I have a son who's an avid skateboarder. I was an avid skateboarder as a kid. We had a ramp in the driveway and all that. Not to prolong the meeting. Couple of things first. Congratulations on re-election.
Thank you.
That's a big thing. And I would like to start just by thanking Tom and also the Chatham Township Public Works Department, without whom I don't think the skate park would be reopened and as popular as it's been. I'm sure you all drive by it all the time like I do. It's anecdotal, but it seems like it's getting a lot more use than it used to. As far as I know, there haven't been any incidents as it regards vandalism. We're trying as hard as we can to get the kids to keep the helmets on. We know that's an issue, but it's extremely popular. And it's a great outlet for kids who are not involved, and a lot of kids who are involved in organized athletics or other school-related programs, clubs, etc. And I think it's a great outlet. It's unfortunate that this is taking place at a time when a lot of people are away. I think we'd have more support here. But I know, and it sounds like from what I heard tonight, it's almost a fait accompli that that's going to be low-income housing at some point. So I just want to be on record that we're very hopeful that we can work with you folks going forward. And we're sort of a loose organization, as it were, but we believe that, and I know this has all been talked about in years past, and I'm sort of jumping in late in the game. There are alternative sites that have been discussed in the past. We hope they'll be considered in the future, should you ultimately decide to move the park or demolish it or what have you. And also, there's a concern that the park be allowed to stay there as long as possible, so that even if a decision is made, that you or the planning board ultimately goes forward with putting another use there, whether it's low-income housing or something else, that the park stay there until we have some time to figure out whether or not we can move it to another location in town, as opposed to just raising it the moment that the decision is made to put housing or something else on the property. So we just wanted to go on record. I'm sort of speaking for all the folks who use the park. I think I'm almost done. In the past, there was a lot of concern about folks coming from out of town, maybe an element we would rather not have in town. To my knowledge, since I've gotten involved with that, I've heard nothing about that. I don't see it when I'm at the park, and I'm there fairly frequently. So I think some of the fear about the park has not come to fruition. And I hope that everyone on the committee agrees, and that at least there'll be serious consideration to keeping it where it is, and if we have to move it, at least keeping it in town. We think it's a great asset for town.
Thank you, Todd.
Thank you.
All set. Anyone else?
Can I just briefly respond and reassure you that the committee is going to certainly take into consideration everything you just said. It's already been discussed. We've already mentioned publicly that we will look for an alternate location if that site is no longer suitable.
And I don't mean to belabor the point by coming here and reiterating that, but there's some concern that if nobody shows up and advocates for it, that with the news that the useful land may change, that without somebody speaking up. So I don't mean to sound as if it hasn't been.
No, I understand, but trust me, we all know that there's support in the community.
Yeah, and as we've spoken in the past. Yes. And so it'd be helpful if you can also post it back on the Facebook page and let others who are not here, but certainly going to the site from Florida, wherever they might be this week, to understand, as Tom had said, as I reiterated to you, there is significant investment in the skate park, significant interest from the community. I think it behooves us to take serious consideration as to how we might utilize that facility elsewhere in town should the affordable housing be located in that area.
And to answer the second question, which is an easy answer, I mean, if there was a decision to put affordable housing there, I mean, as long as the skate park was usable, it would be used up to the point in time where, construction would begin. There'd be no reason to stop using it just because, I mean, there's going to be a lapse of time between the time a decision is made and the time construction begins. And certainly during that time, the skate park would be open.
And maybe then just to add another 2 cents, there are resolutions on the agenda tonight, but this is very much the start of a long process. I mean, this is stretching on probably a year.
I've been here my whole life. I was one of the guinea pigs that went to school in this building when it was all one classroom, so I know things move at glacial speed, but I just wanted to be on record. And if I can speak one other, just for the suggestion box, in the future, in the future, if anything related to the skate park is on the agenda and is going to be talked about, if we could put it a little bit earlier. I don't know how that's decided because we end up with children and kids who are nodding off at these. This is fascinating civics for the rest of us, but some of our supporters have a tough time sticking around this long, so just for the suggestion box.
But procedurally, understand, the resolution tonight is simply to refer something to the planning board, where there will then also be public hearings, and then if they act on it, it comes back here again.
Understood.
So we're very early in the process, and there's going to be lots of opportunity for the community to be heard.
And that's why I appreciate your patience with my appearance.
Thank you, Todd.
Thank you.
Todd.
Anyone else want to come forward to speak? All right, seeing no one else coming forward, we'll close out the hearing of citizens. Moving on to our 2 resolutions before the consent agenda. First is Resolution 2016-182, resolution authorizing the Township of Chatham Planning Board to undertake a preliminary investigation for the redevelopment of approximately 3.8 acres of land known as a portion of Block 48.16, Tax Lot 117.27, as shown on the Township of Chatham tax map. Open up for any discussion from the committee members.
The language on the resolution is pretty much legalese. Could we ask Albert to try to take a stab at explaining what it is for the layman and give a little bit of context and where we go from here, kind of a thing?
Certainly.
Well, let me really start with the second resolution that's on the agenda, because that's the resolution that gives a history of what is proposed to occur here. You are correct, the preliminary study resolution is basically the standard resolution that is utilized to refer this type of matter to the planning board. The first resolution or the second resolution on the agenda is a resolution referring a rezoning request to the planning board for study and review. The resolution goes through a series of whereas clauses that explains where we are today. The property owner, Betsy Holt Har, along with a developer, or two developers, Sterling Development Group and Sun Homes, have asked that the property known as Dixie Dale be redeveloped. Rezoned, not redeveloped. And they're proposing that 50 units be built there, that the existing mansion be maintained, and that 4 units be developed on the second part or the second floor of the mansion. It would be basically a cluster development with green space all around the development. That proposal is not consistent with the current zoning. So this resolution refers this to the planning board for review as part of a master plan examination or re-examination. In conjunction with this proposal, the developer has also volunteered or offered to build affordable housing to meet part of the town's affordable housing obligation on a property that is commonly known as the skate park, but it is property that is zoned for affordable housing, has been zoned for affordable housing for a number of years, and is owned by the municipality. So this resolution, as I said, refers this request to the planning board for review and study. This resolution does not represent a final action by you. As the administrator said, if the planning board decides to make a recommendation to rezone this property, it would come back to the Township Committee. Any action that the planning board takes as a result of this study to study whether or not the property should be rezoned would be subject to public hearings, public participation, and then a final action by the planning board. The planning board's action would be an amendment to the master plan and a proposed ordinance as to how that property should be rezoned. That master plan comes back to you, and then you have to endorse or approve the master plan and adopt ordinances if the matter gets that far. Again, ordinances, this is no different than any other ordinance that you address. It is subject to introduction, publication, and public hearing. And again, the audience or the public would be given an opportunity to participate in that. Whenever there is a zoning ordinance that's introduced by the Township Committee, even if it originates at the planning board, you have to refer it back to the planning board for them to make a determination as to whether or not it's consistent with the master plan, and then it's returned to you. And again, that is a zoning ordinance. It goes in your zoning code and becomes part of the organic law of the municipality. Does that mean the developer gets approval at that point? No. The developer still has to return to the planning board for the typical subdivision application that the planning board deals on a daily basis. So as the administrator said, this is the start of a process. All this does is places before the planning board the discussion about rezoning this property. And as I said, it doesn't represent any type of final action. And while these steps are occurring, and all of these steps are not being made up by you or by me, all of these steps are dictated by the municipal land use law. So the action that you take is one of, will be consistent with the municipal land use law at the township committee level and at the planning board. So the resolution sets forth the history of the request and what you're asking the planning board to do. The second resolution is a resolution to again refer the matter to the planning board under a slightly different set of circumstances and a different law. That law is the local redevelopment and housing law, and what you're seeking there is for the planning board to study whether or not the skate park is an area in need of redevelopment and meets one of the criteria, one or more of the criteria contained in the redevelopment law to declare it as an area in need of redevelopment. The planning board commissions a study known as a preliminary investigation. That preliminary investigation, when it's completed, is a public document, as is any amendment to the master plan, as is any ordinance that's proposed. The planning board holds a public hearing on that preliminary study. Again, the public is welcome to participate and be present. Then the planning board makes a recommendation to you. It's a recommendation that you can either accept or reject. If you decide to accept a recommendation to redevelop the property or accept the designation of an area in need of redevelopment, then the next step is a redevelopment plan is prepared, and a redevelopment plan is like a zoning ordinance. It is the document that governs how that particular property will be developed, and it governs things like setbacks, building heights, density, the layout of the project or the development, just like any other zoning ordinance. And again, there are multiple stages, so you will be addressing, the Township Committee, and the Planning Board will be addressing the studies that result from this referral for a period. So you are correct, Mr. Kelly, the second resolution does not have the kind of flavor that the first resolution has. It really is a resolution intended to comply with the legal requirements of the local housing and redevelopment law, and it is basically technical, but it's to authorize the planning board to proceed forward. The planning board, unlike the first resolution, on a rezoning, the planning board on its own can make that determination to move toward amending the master plan. On a redevelopment study or preliminary investigation, that request to the planning board must originate with the Township Committee.
Quick question, just for edification for the public. This is referred to the planning board. What happens if the planning board does not pass these resolutions, does not take action on them, or denies them, whatever the case? What recourse does the committee have?
Well, in terms of the first resolution, or the rezoning resolution, that is, you can, not only in this case, but in any case, you can adopt a zoning ordinance that is inconsistent with the master plan, meaning a zoning ordinance that is not recommended by the master plan. What occurs in that case is that you have to adopt what is referred to as a reasons resolution, which is a detailed resolution explaining your reasons why you're not following the master plan and overruling, in essence, the master plan and any recommendation that the planning board would make. So it is a detailed resolution to support your decision to not follow the master plan recommendation or the inconsistency determination by the planning board. And you would need to have, I believe there is a particular voting requirement on that, and I cannot remember whether it's a simple majority or a supermajority. I think it may be 3 people, whether there's 3 people here. So it may be 3 out of the, it may be dependent upon the majority of the membership, but I'd have to check that. But in any case, you can overrule the planning board on the zoning change. The second request on the redevelopment, I believe that it would end with the planning board.
Thank you. Redevelopment of. That's
The designation of the area in need of redevelopment.
So
would
just
end with the planning
from a technicality standpoint, it's already zoned affordable housing. Why do we need to send it as a area in need of redevelopment if it's already zoned?
Two different concepts. One is a zoning concept. The second one is one to provide for certain tools for any developer that is going to develop this property. Very often, areas in need of redevelopment are necessary for planning, for financial considerations, one of them being a payment in lieu of taxes program. You cannot have a payment in lieu of taxes program without there being a redevelopment designation. What a payment in lieu of taxes program means is that the municipality negotiates with the developer for a payment, an annual payment, and that payment then is, under most circumstances, you're collecting taxes for yourselves as the municipality, the county, and the school board. And there are some other taxes that you collect also, but those are the three primary taxes you collect. Under a payment in lieu of taxes, the percentage of taxes that you collect for each of those entities changes, and it's subject to negotiation with the redeveloper. So very often what occurs is that the redeveloper may pay slightly less in taxes on that property than they would under normal circumstances, and the municipality, as a municipal entity, receives more or a higher percentage share of that revenue.
Any other questions of Albert?
Okay, while I explained these two resolutions in tandem, I think you should take them separately, because they are two separate things that are being referred to the planning board.
Any other discussion on Resolution 2016-182? Do you have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second. Mr. Gallup?
Yes.
Mr. Kelly?
I'm going to vote yes, but just a quick word, I guess, before we do that, is just to say that I think this is one of the most significant issues we're going to be grappling with over the next probably year. And just to, number one, reassure the public that this is an early step in a long process, and that there will be a lot of opportunities for public hearings and public comment as it goes forward. To reassure the skateboard people that it's very much a topic on our radar and during conversations, and that this topic has been on our closed session agenda for probably the better part of a year already, and we certainly have chewed on this for the members of the Township Committee. I think that this is the very logical step at this stage, and I'm looking forward to seeing more data coming forward and having it come back to the Township Committee for further action as we move forward. So yes, I vote yes.
Mrs. Schwartz?
I'd like to say that I have a great deal of faith in our planning board. I think it's comprised of very prudent, thoughtful, and dedicated people in our township. I've been privileged to serve on the planning board for the last number of years, and I put a great deal of faith, to reiterate, I put a great deal of faith in our planning board. So I would vote absolutely yes. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Sullivan?
So, yes, and I would echo those sentiments that Karen just expressed. Certainly the planning board is very experienced, knowledgeable. I think it's a solid planning board and certainly gets a good overall reflection of the entire town. I have probably been very vocal in the executive sessions of this committee on this issue on multiple fronts, but I do think it should go to the planning board for the exact reasons we stated to be discussed further. So my answer is yes.
And Mayor Ritter?
I'll just say yes and leave my conversation or comments for the next resolution. Moving on to Resolution 2016-183, Resolution of the Township Committee of the Township of Chatham, County of Morris, State of New Jersey, referring a rezoning request for Dixie-Dale Farm to the Planning Board. Any comments, questions of Albert?
No.
It's up to the chair. It's up to you, Mr. Mayor. There was an opportunity to raise questions prior to this, but by the same token, the public did not have the benefit of any explanation that I may have given or among your own discussion. So if it's your pleasure, but I would say my recommendation would be is to limit it to your standard time of 3 minutes.
Okay, is that all right, Stace?
Come on up. And name and address.
Stacy Ewald, 54 Nicholson Drive. My question is, these two resolutions are taken into consideration with the overall affordable housing plan,
Right.
and would be influenced by that plan and by our obligations. So the question is, at what point does the town get to look at, does the public get to look at all three components, because they're all going to interrelate. So depending on what our obligation is, you know, that will determine the discussions on the affordable housing location, as well as properly, the Dixie-Dale Farm potentially as well. So that's what I'm wondering, is when do we get to look at the entire plan and how it impacts, because it's going to put a pressure on services, on schools, on traffic.
The resolutions are two separate resolutions. As I indicated before, they can proceed separately or they can proceed jointly. They're proceeding jointly because the developer has made an offer to develop the skate park for affordable housing. The skate park, or that component, is going to be only one part of an overall plan. If you look on the township website, there is a lot of information regarding the affordable housing litigation and the affordable housing plan, and on the website is a draft of the current proposal to satisfy the affordable housing obligation of the municipality. This is not part of that plan because that plan was developed prior to this opportunity arising, but this will be incorporated into that plan. So my answer in a very long-winded way is I think you have to look at what is proposed tonight along with what is already included in the draft plan to give you an overall assessment of how the municipality is addressing its affordable housing.
The draft plan, when was that posted? Because I went through everything.
It's been posted for quite some time.
Are you talking about the COA third round?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a tab. If you go on the municipal website, there's an affordable housing tab. Within that affordable housing tab, there's an index. This is one of the tab, or it is a letter to Judge Hansberry within that affordable housing tab. And it was probably submitted to Judge Hansberry probably at the beginning of this year.
Okay. I've gone through all those documents. My suggestion is that at some point, for the benefit of the public, there should be some executive summary and some public hearing of the entire plan.
Yeah, if I may, let me just jump in here, because one of the things that's being left out is that we're in litigation. Okay, we're before the courts, we're in litigation, we're in negotiations with the Fair Share Housing Center, who's the adversary in this whole thing statewide, and at such time as we either get a decision by the judge or reach a settlement, at that point it all comes out for the public to see what our obligation is and how we're going to address that obligation.
Okay.
But we're not there yet.
Yeah.
There are some moving parts.
So at that point, we can discuss everything together. And that should
Yes.
be soon, right?
I don't know.
As Mike indicated, we've been talking about this for the better part of the year right now. And
Well, we've been talking about the litigation.
Yes.
And the components of the litigation and how to address the litigation. This has been a relatively new development in terms of that litigation.
correct.
So the affordable housing plan. Mike, back up, please. the affordable housing plan is a part of the master plan. The affordable housing plan is technically known as a housing element and fair share plan, which is one of the elements of the master plan. And as an amendment to the master plan, it goes through the same hearing process that I described earlier with respect to a rezoning of a piece of property. So there will be, and this has been before that plan was submitted to the court, it was reviewed by the planning board in open session. It was also reviewed here at the Township Committee in open session before it was submitted to the court. So that plan has been, as I said, vetted already at the planning board level and at the township level, but it will be updated further as some of these developments that the administrator mentioned occur.
But Albert, correct me if I'm wrong, but Stacy does ask a good question and points out that one of the key factors in this whole conversation is what our housing obligation is going to be as a number. And we don't have that number yet.
That has not been determined yet, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Yeah,
once
my
that's-
point being, so for example, when I looked at the affordable housing plan, they had market to affordable as part of our contribution. So let's say we figure out we want to do over 10 years, 50 market to affordable. Well, that impacts your skate park development. At that point, maybe you don't need to do that. And it also impacts your negotiation with Dixie-Dale Farms. So, and the zoning board doesn't have the benefit of that information. So that's really when you're planning for the entire community and all the pressure on the public services, it's nice to have that overview and that executive summary for the public to say this is what our obligation is when it's available, this is how we're going to meet that, and this is how it drives these other components.
And let me just try it one more time. We're trying to get there. You know, there are moving parts to this. The one that we're not able to talk about yet is the substance of the negotiations with the Fair Share Housing Center. Okay, that's a key piece for us, is to either get an agreement with them or ultimately have a judge decide what our obligation is, and then to have to come up with a plan that satisfies the court's order. And we're just not there yet.
Yeah.
We don't know that number. That number might be, 200, it might be 500. We just don't know.
Yeah.
Or 50.
Wonderful. Thank
And
you.
understand also, we're developing an FAQ sheet as well for residents and others so that we can be as helpful in terms of informing our residents in terms of what's going on and what they can expect. So
Yes, no, thank you. Once
the
we get
planning
that
board
information, I'll
is
look
as
forward to
well.
hearing.
And one other piece, we didn't mention it tonight, but another action that the committee has already taken relative to the affordable housing plan is to extend the controls on the existing 73 units down at Vernon Grove. So that also is another part of what's going on, and there's also some negotiations still surrounding that issue.
Yeah.
And the planning board will be public hearings. You'll have an opportunity to...
As I said, even if a case is settled, it is still subject to review by the planning board, by this committee, and ultimately by the court. So, again, there is a very detailed process that has to be followed to resolve affordable housing litigation. And one of the keys is that obligation in terms of a number, and we're working as best you can under the circumstances to achieve that number and to prepare a plan that will have merit before the court.
Thanks so much for your time.
thank you.
We'll see on Mondays now, right? Planning board is Monday night.
Any other comments, questions? Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second?
Mr. Gallup?
Yeah, so I just wanted to say by way of explanation that this is the real critical issue coming before the committee. I've been on the committee 9 years, and this is probably the most significant issue that I've been involved in. And the key part of this resolution, as Albert says, they're separate, but they're intertwined. And it says, because Sterling Properties has offered to provide the township with a 100%, and that's a key phrase, 100% affordable housing development on the 3 acres, the skate park. that we're proceeding with this. So we're giving something to the developer and at the Christmas tree farm, but we're getting something back, and we're getting 100% affordable housing obligation. For example, if we put in 30 units there, we're getting a credit for 30 units. So it's whatever we're putting in. Hypothetically, we're putting in 30, we get a credit for 30. If we're putting in 60, we get a credit for 60. So the Council for Affordable Housing, it's been an issue since I've been on the committee for 9 years. It raises, political questions. Some people support it, some people don't. But the Supreme Court of New Jersey has said that there's a constitutional right to affordable housing. So it's our obligation as elected officials to fulfill our oath of office and come up with a resolution that meets the Supreme Court's statement that there is a constitutional right to affordable housing, whether we agree with the decision or not. So this basically, we've been in executive session. This, as the collective wisdom of this committee, is one part of this solution to meet this oath of office that we have to meet this constitutional right. This is a critical issue for the committee. It's a critical issue for the town. It's going to affect how the town's going to be developed over the next few years. And it's going to require the collective wisdom of the people on this committee, the people on the planning board, and the town. There's going to be winners and losers, and that's why we all have to work together. The skate park, if this goes forward, is going to have to be moved. So that's something that the skate park supporters don't like. But we all have to work together because we have an obligation to come up with affordable housing. So we have to have give and take. We have to respect each other's positions. We'll try to find another place for the skate park if indeed the committee goes forward with putting the affordable housing there. But I'm confident, as I lead the committee, that the one thing this committee has done over 9 years has always worked together and come out with a collective, unanimous decision for what's best in the town. That has been a thing that's, since I've been on the committee, any substantive issue has always eventually been the collective wisdom, and we've always come out 5-0 saying, yep, we put our heads together, this is the best solution. And I'm confident as I leave the committee and next year that the wisdom of the committee will rise up, and our citizens will work together, and we'll come up with a resolution and a solution that fulfills our oath of office to come up with affordable housing for Chatham. So I'm a long way of saying yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Bob. Karen? Oh, sorry.
Mr. Kelly?
I say yes, and enthusiastically to start this public portion of this significant conversation, and I look forward to the detailed conversations that go forward with the planning board and with the township committee.
Mrs. Schwartz?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Sullivan?
Well, I would just say that certainly not, I don't want to be as long-winded as Bob to getting around to saying yes, but I do want to say that we have had multiple discussions. I think we do all respect our opinions. We have had varying opinions on this subject. Certainly, and just to clarify, while the Supreme Court has said there's an obligation for affordable housing, there is no obligation by this committee or this town to build it. That obligation is placed on the builders if they come to your town and want to build, and it's by the way of a set-aside. That set-aside ranges from 8 to 20%. Sometimes it's 20, it's been as low as 8. It's often in the 12 to 15% range of whatever it is you are building. I think in this resolution, the Dixie-Dale Farms, for those of us who know the Har family and certainly the members of the Historical Society who were treated to the graciousness of the Hars to visit their property and view their home, you get the sense that they are doing, as long-time residents, the family of this town, that they are doing exactly what everyone in this town would like to see. They have a right to monetize their property, but they're doing it in a way that they do not want to overdevelop. So I appreciate what they are doing. The affordable housing is for us to figure out, but it's also for the builder to satisfy the obligation. So I don't know if that was as long as you, Bob, but.
I don't think so. You got another minute.
It might have been a little long, but yes.
Mayor Ritter?
Yeah, I'll just say a few comments. I think everyone on the committee has already indicated this has been a point of conversation for a better part of the year now in executive sessions. Some of our executive sessions have lasted longer than our regular meetings. This has been a very important issue, and we want to make sure that our residents are well aware of what's before us. And, you know, Bob says there's winners and losers. I'd like to think at the end of the day, quite frankly, there aren't going to be any losers in this situation. This is an obligation I believe we have to fulfill. I have faith in the planning board that they will make the right decision and look at these two resolutions and approve them as needed and bring them back to the committee for ordinances. This is I believe, an opportunity for the committee to control its destiny. If these resolutions weren't to pass, what Kevin talks to, this 80-20, is we open up the town where you have open space or other parcels of land potentially to builder remedy lawsuits. And I think this is an opportunity for us to have a control as to what happens in our town. People are concerned about the infrastructure pressure that any kind of development will take in town, the schools and everything else. So I wholeheartedly endorse this, and I would certainly hope the planning board will see the recommendation from the committee and the 5-0 support for this and act in due course to approve it as well. So yes. That's all I got. I'll give my time back to the speaker. Moving on to the consent agenda. Any questions on the consent agenda? Or Greg, you want to read it?
This evening we have 11 resolutions. Resolution 2016-207, payment of bills. 2016-208, receipt of reports. 2016-209, approving meeting minutes. 2016-210, approving executive session minutes. 2016-211, approving sewer connection for 42 Delwood Ave. 2016-212, amending employee manual. 2016-213, budget transfers. 2016-214, appointing fire official. 2016-215, releasing performance bond and accepting new performance bond. 2016-216, repealing resolution 2013-027, and resolution 2016-217, appointing member to environmental commission.
Any questions on the consent agenda?
Actually, I do. If we could have a little bit of discussion or referral about our appointing of the new fire prevention official and fire inspector, if anybody can provide me with a little background on this gentleman and how he perceives his role in our township.
I can do that for you, Mrs. Schwartz. Barry Howard has served as our fire prevention officer and fire inspector for the past 25 years. He's retiring at the end of this year. He and I worked jointly to solicit applications for a replacement for him. And actually, the gentleman that he and I both are recommending be appointed has been serving as a fill-in for Barry throughout this year, doing inspections on occasions when Barry was not available. The individual that we're talking about currently has a degree in fire and safety science. He has a variety of advanced certifications as a fire official, as a fire inspector, as an EMT, CPR, incident management, again, a variety of things. He serves, I'm a little bit reluctant because if there's a chance you guys aren't going to approve this, I don't want to give out too much information about who the individual is. This is a part-time position. The salary is $12,000. It's 1 full day per week, and it covers doing all of the fire inspections for real estate transfers, for the smoke detectors and carbon monoxide detectors. It also involves doing all of the fire prevention education that comes out of that office, and it also involves doing all of the inspections for the life hazard materials and facilities in town, all of the commercial properties, all of the restaurants, all of the multifamily housing units, and this individual is eminently qualified. He serves in the same capacity in other places. I said, and he has a history with us. He's been serving as a fill-in. He understands, and it's been reinforced with him, that we are resident-friendly. We're not looking to beat people over the head with rules and regulations. They are held accountable to maintaining their facilities in accordance with the regulations, but we do not take a heavy-handed approach to things, and he will fit into that mode quite well. So I hope that answers your question.
Well, thank you for addressing the resident-friendly nature of what we expect of our fire inspector, because I really wouldn't expect somebody to come into my yard and
I
say
do have a
that
resume if you want to pass it down and take a look at it. As I said, I'm reluctant to say the name unless you guys
It's more philosophical than anything else. I'm just confident that we would protect the individual property owner's right to smoke a cigar in his own backyard or something along those lines.
Yeah, that's not an issue. I'm sorry, say what?
I'm looking for Jeff's government work team, everyone, thank you.
Any other comments, questions on the consent agenda? A motion to approve?
Can I just ask one question
sure.
about this? I'm sorry. Is that a pensionable, because it's one day a week?
Normally, it used to be, but one of the pension reforms was that people that hold multiple positions can only be in the pension for one of them, and it's the one that pays the larger salary. So he is in the pension in one of his other towns. He will not be in the pension here. And there's no benefits either as far as health insurance goes.
Greg? Oh, do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
And would anybody like to make any policy position statements before we vote?
A few words more about government overreach, please.
Mr. Geller?
Greg.
Not in my backyard. Where can I say not in my backyard?
Spoken by a man with tenure.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Mrs. Schwartz?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Sullivan?
Yes.
Mayor Ritter?
Well, actually, I do want to, yes. We'll now open it up for a hearing of citizens. Anyone wants to come forward to speak? Okay.
Oh, he's going to speak.
Yes?
Joe Bezralian, Fairfax Terrace. Thank you for grappling for so long and so many hours with the land use resolutions. I say it all the time, but I really think it all the time, I think we're lucky to have you guys is independent, thoughtful, incredible, very caring, and independent, I think was the first word I used, but really being able to look at these resolutions and the overall good of the town and dealing with so many different possibilities that could result from any number of actions that you're taking on these resolutions. But I mean, I've seen it come up on the executive session agenda so many times, and know you must be thinking about it really, really hard. And I think we're very lucky to have you 5 or you 9 or put in as much time and thought as you are. So just a thank you for that. Yeah.
Thanks, Joe.
Thank you.
Thanks, Joe.
Greg, you want to read the resolution?
Session?
Please.
This evening we have Resolution 2016-P-17, resolution of the Township Committee of the Township of Chatham in the County of Morris, New Jersey, authorizing conference of the Township Committee with the public excluded. Whereas NJSA 10:4-12 of the Open Public Meetings Act permits the exclusion of the public from a meeting in certain circumstances, and whereas the Township Committee of the Township of Chatham is of the opinion that such circumstances presently exist, now therefore be it resolved by the Township Committee of the Township of Chatham, County of Morris, State of New Jersey as follows. 1. The public shall be excluded from discussion of the specified subject matter. 2. The general nature of the subject matter to be discussed is as follows. Litigation in the matter of the Township of Chatham for a judgment of compliance of its third round housing element and fair share plan, docket number MRS-L-1 1659-15, and property acquisition or investment options, open space. 3, it is anticipated that the minutes on the subject matter of the executive session will be made public upon conclusion of the matter under discussion and in any event when appropriate pursuant to NJSA 10:4-7 and 4-13. 4, the committee will come back into regular session and may take further action. And 5, the resolution shall take effect immediately.
Is there a motion to approve?
Yes.
Is there a second?
Second?
Mr. Gallup?
Yes.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Mrs. Schwartz?
Yes?
Deputy Mayor Sullivan?
Yes.
Mayor Ritter?
Yes.